First of all, I'd like to open up by saying thank you for your willingness to serve. I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Council Lady Brenda Haywood, and I'd like for you to meet the other council members, after which you can introduce yourself. And we have 3 distinct questions we'd like for you to entertain at that time. Is that okay?
Yes.
Thank you again. I'm Council Lady Brenda Haywood.
And I'm Council Lady Sherry Weiner.
Councilmember Berkeley Allen.
Dave Rosenberg.
Sharon Hurt.
I am Andrea Lindsey, a resident of Council District 24 and a resident of Davidson County since 1970, except for 2.5 years. When I was a teacher at Maplewood High School 40 years ago this spring, one of the assistant principals expressed to me a fear. He feared that the young men of that era, those teenagers, would no longer stop when an authority figure asked them to stop. And he projected that onto the police as well. He saw this as a danger to the young people then. And we know that 2 young men in our community, Jacques Coleman and Daniel Hambrick, were stopped, were passengers at 2 incidents, and they just took off running. As I saw these news stories, I was remembering the fear that this assistant principal had and how this prophecy had come true. I became increasingly alarmed, though, as the news stories developed. And I saw the videotapes of the officers running through the neighborhood in pursuit of their duties, firing at a fleeing person. What alarmed me was that there were neighbors there who were on the street. Children could have come out of their residences curious about what was happening. And so I followed these stories and the debate about the Community Oversight Board over a period of months and came to realize it was time for us as a community to bring these concerns to the forefront of our community. That there is no need for someone to lose his or her life for being stopped by a police officer. There is no need for innocent people to have their lives endangered when policemen are running through the neighborhood firing their weapons. And the thing is that both police officers had not seen these 2 people who were killed committing a crime. And at a recent lecture series on American gun culture that I attended, the teacher, who had been a former undercover police officer in another state, said that there is a misunderstanding that a police officer can aim at a target and hit it. And she said that only 1 out of 5 shots may hit the target, and in this case, people. So I thought, yeah, that's what, increases the harm for everybody in the community. So I see the Community Oversight Board as an opportunity to review our police training, to review those workplace practices that perhaps need to be reviewed so often about assessing risk and the better ways to get back up, to assist in finding out why a person fled, rather than unholstering the weapon and shooting it in a neighborhood. And then I also was very interested in people being confused about why the police department responded the way it did. And we know that they have certain protocols. And I think Police Chief Anderson has done very well on many things, but when you have silence, that creates confusion. And the citizens of Nashville want to be informed about why their police officers were still on the job when their records indicated that perhaps they were too quick to make risky judgments, or they were assigned a certain task and then when they saw the person fleeing, they took it upon themselves to pursue. In this modern age of policing, we do have communication systems where, in my opinion, backup could have been called and assistance could have been there in a matter of minutes, if not seconds, so that these two situations could have had a different outcome than what they did. No one should, as I said, lose their life for being stopped for a minor infraction, whatever that is. So it is my hope that in serving on this board, that I may, through the protocol set up for the board, prevent any other tragedies like this happening, whether these are young men, young women, or teenagers who often do not think through their actions. Because I know we do not want a community where we have people whose lives are endangered and whose families are grieving. Then I'd like to go on to my background and familiarity with civil rights and equity issues. As early as 1960, at age 12, living in Murfreesboro, Tennessee, I became aware of this nation's civil rights and equity issues. All my life, through school, I had spoken the Pledge of Allegiance to the United States, where we know we have liberty and justice for all. And we know in 1960-61, in this area, the civil rights movement was being, people were more aware of it. And I remember going home and talking to my mother about this. I said, "You mean there are citizens in our nation, African-American citizens, who are denied the right to vote?" So even at age 12, I was becoming aware of issues outside of myself. As a middle, high, and college student from 1960 to 1970, I would watch local and national news broadcasts with my parents. And they always liked to be informed, and we would discuss the events that were taking place in desegregation. In college, I acted in the first integrated play at MTSU, The Death of Bessie Smith, where Bessie Smith died as a result of being denied treatment. In 1970, I took the first African American history course offered at MTSU to increase my knowledge. Since graduating from college 48 and a half years ago now, I have continued to stay informed. I was a career educator at middle and high schools, and I was a classroom teacher and librarian, and sought to educate my students through class assignments, research projects, and current events about the impact of things on our culture, so they would be informed citizens. And then finally, fortunately, I was raised to not get in trouble, and I was a pretty easy child. But I have had contact here in Nashville with the police. 3 moving violations, 2 of which I did receive a ticket for. But I was very impressed with the politeness and professionalism of the police officers. And just last fall, a policeman knocked on my door, and he was responding to a complaint of noise. And he was very tenacious in understanding a situation, and we found out that there had been a misunderstanding about the street address.
I am so apologetic. We're down to 30 seconds.
Yeah.
And if you use those 30 seconds to answer this, to respond to, there's one thing I'd like for the community to know. What's one thing that you would like the entire community to know?
I want them to know that all my life I have been an informed citizen. I am able to work with groups. I am articulate because of my education and professional background, and I can come to a consensus.
Thank you.
you.
Thank you so
Thank you.
much.
Thank
We
you.
appreciate your time.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
Hey, how are you?
I'm well, thank you.
Great. Good afternoon,
Good
Ms.
afternoon.
Tina, and we thank you for your willingness to serve. I'd like to introduce myself, and everybody will make you familiar with them. My name is Council Lady Brenda Haywood, and after we go around the table, you tell us who you are, and then you will address 3 questions. Is that okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Council Lady Sherry Weiner.
Thank you.
Berkeley Allen.
Dave Rosenberg.
Thank you.
Sharon Hurt.
Thank you.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Tina Fox. I am currently the State Director of Victim Services with the Parole Board, and I will be retiring February 27th after 30 years. I'm very excited about that.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Explain my interest in serving on the Community Oversight Board and the reasons I wish to serve. There are copious reasons. My main reason is to pay it forward. I have a vast experiences in working in the criminal justice field unconditionally, and would like to aid in providing a professional voice in being accountable to the council, to the citizens of Davidson County, to the mayor, as well as to MENPD. I think it's critical, as we have been discussing over the last few months about Metro Police being accountable to the citizens, but I think that the committee should be equally accountable to the citizens, to Metro, to the council, and also to the mayor. Describe my background. I majored in criminal justice back in the day. Have, as I stated, 30 years of service with working with offenders for about 20 plus years, and then the last 7 years I have been working with crime victims. So I have been working on both ends of the spectrums for offenders and crime victims in a professional, non-biased manner, advocating for both offenders when I was working for them and with them, and now for crime victims. My primary responsibility for crime victims is to ensure that their legal rights are being upheld throughout the parole process. My background, let me go back to number 2. I don't currently have any civil rights and equity issues. However, I am teachable, I am trainable, and I am coachable and willing to get the professional development that I need to be a part of this committee and to serve the citizens of this county.
Have you been involved or part of the civil rights or equitable issues that may have occurred throughout your life?
Yeah, I have through Dr. King Days for the birthdays at Tennessee State University. I've marched with and for the students, and we'll do that again on this Monday.
Where'd you attend school?
I attend Tennessee State University here in Nashville. However,
So were you there when they had the merger?
I was there when the SGA initiated the merger.
You want to talk a little bit about that? Because I think that to be something related to equity issues and civil rights. So it doesn't have to be something specific that you did, but your participation or your understanding in for or against certain things that happened.
Sure. So I definitely supported the SGA in the efforts to maintain some solidarity within the university during that time. It was back in 1984, 85. I still remember the president of SGA was Greg Carr, and his efforts to make Tennessee State University a university for all in terms of equality. So yes, I did participate in copious marches during that time.
Thank you.
Yes.
You have a question?
So I have a question.
Sure.
Would you mind defining for me your perception of the word bias
My
and oversight? Bias and oversight.
Sure. So for me, bias is going in with a preconceived notion of something and probably acting upon that. Oversight is overseeing unconditionally with an unbiased approach to make sure that everyone is on the same page relative to the topic and or topics.
Great. Will you stay on the statewide victims council as chair?
I will not. I
So
will be
when you
relinquishing
retire.
everything effective February 27th.
Okay. Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
What, as we go through this exercise for the first time ourselves,
Yes,
what do you
sir.
think we should be looking for in board members?
I believe that the council should be looking for someone who has some experience in criminal justice, has a perception of right and wrong, someone who makes decisions. It's a challenge to be a leader. It's a challenge to lead. I think the council should be looking for someone who has experience with working with and working for the community in a non-biased way, and a person who can be accountable, not just say, I want to be accountable, but someone who is accountable and who has been proven within their work history, within the community, that they can be responsible and responsive to the council.
Thank you.
So if you could speak to the community, what is one thing that you would like for the community to know as it relates to how you feel about the goals of the board?
Yeah, I think the main thing is what I stated earlier, and that is that we want Metro to be accountable to us. But I think that the committee should be as equally accountable to the entities that are involved. It has to work both ways. And I think that if we establish a rapport with those persons who are selected for the committee and those with Metro Police, I think that it will work itself out well.
Okay, thank you
Yes,
very
ma'am.
much. Berkeley, do you have anything?
I guess I would just, you clearly have unique talents and experience for providing that accountability. What are the other slots on the committee that you think we would need to add to you to make it be a complete committee?
Transparency is one. I think having persons who are professional in thinking. We oftentimes get personally involved in the community issues, but just to maintain that professionalism and that the main reason that we're here is to aid the community and the council and the mayor's office and Metro Police so that we can have a better and safer city.
Okay, anyone else? Ms. Fox, we appreciate you, and we'd just like to extend a hearty thank you for being with us tonight.
Very good, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
So we'll see you all on Tuesday, right?
Correct.
Hot seat.
I know, we don't even have to. Okay,
Hi.
40 seconds before we can start again.
Do I sit?
Make yourself. Another
I'm
year.
okay. Above ground, employed, so that's good.
That's good,
Project, trust you.
that we know of. They say it's good on the other side.
I had 2 FBI agents see me today, and
Uh-oh.
I said, "Are y'all getting paid?"
10 seconds.
Okay, here we go.
First of all, I would like to say thank you for your willingness to serve, okay? And I'd like to introduce myself, and everyone will tell you who they are. We're all council members, and I'm Brenda Haywood. Then we will ask you to tell us who you are, and we have 3 specific questions that we would like for you to entertain, okay? Thank you.
Oh, Sherry Weiner, I'm sorry. I was
Berkeley
reading.
Allen.
Dave Rosenberg.
Hi.
Sharon Hurt.
You're staring at me, I'm going,
Okay.
what?
My name is Ken Pence. I'm currently an engineering professor at Vanderbilt for the last 14 years. I was a Metro police officer for 31 years, 16 years on SWAT. And I trained police on confrontation management. During that time, I would go out on all the police shootings looking to figure out ways to reduce the use of deadly force. Some of my projects at Vanderbilt were to, I brought in the NAACP and some of the other people to work back when Kimbrough, I don't know if you go back that far,
Dr. Charles Kimbrough.
right, and to look at ways to reduce deadly force. I'm a graduate of the FBI National Academy, trained police. I've testified for and against police in disciplinary and courts, federal, state, of course in local jurisdictions. They would ask me, the reason I wanted to get on the board particularly was to kind of pull the plug on complaints from the police department, and they know I'm fair, so they can't complain that we're loading it up with, people who are anti-police. And I've tested, like I say, they would often come to me from other jurisdictions and ask me for proffers of testimony to see about a case, and I'd go, no, here's where this person screwed up, here's where the training was lacking, and then they wouldn't use me in court, because you have to do a proffer. And, it's just, but I've done that for many years. I still teach martial arts. Emmett Turner, I saw, had come here. He got his red belt under me, but he kept getting promoted till he made chief. And he was good. He was a taekwondo guy with me, and nice guy. So if I can help any way, I'd like to do that. Background: I'm very familiar with civil and criminal law in those areas, since I would teach use of force and what was correct and what was improper. I would review all use of force cases for the police department and look for ways to reduce that. When I first started, we were using batons, and it was horrible. The training wasn't effective. And when I took over, we had large reductions in use of force and less complaints too. When I worked in North Nashville, typically from about 12th to what was Schrader Lane area. And back then it was pretty rough. I've been in quite a few shootouts on the SWAT team. During the time I was on SWAT, we only shot one person, and that was in West Nashville, and he was coming out of the house still shooting. But I've been shot at by whites, blacks, Asians, never had a Hispanic shoot at me, but all of the above. And I was proud that I was head of the entry team.
You ever get shot?
Been shot at.
But never shot?
Never shot, no, been shot at quite often, but never shot. I do research on acoustic shock wave. We're doing elephant sensors right now. We just deployed one in Africa that to catch poachers. So the supersonic shock wave turns on the GPS and the device and calls the local police so they can respond to the poachers. So.
The beauty of sound.
Yes. Do you have any questions? I know you have to ask the same one to everybody, but do you have any questions that, you know, I
Have
could?
you completed your
Yeah, that's pretty
response
much.
to those?
Yeah.
Okay, then we will open it up.
Could you share the definition of bias and
Bias?
oversight?
Bias is when you bring something to the table that is not facts. You're bringing your feelings that, you know, I saw this on TV and I go there. Bias is a lot of times people are raised in a environment and they bring their parents' thoughts in the community and they've experienced a bad thing and they color that with everybody in a race or gender or whatever bias. And what was the other one, bias?
Oversight.
Oversight. To look over what, and to give a view of the facts that you would normally get in court, but in a non-legal setting, because they're ethical and legal settings. You can be legal, but not ethical. And that's not what we want. We don't want just legal. I'm doing it by legal. I want to be ethical too in the use of force, and you have to have both, and that's a huge difference. So,
Can you talk a little bit about your reducing use of force, and do you think that, I mean, as someone who knows that that can be done, but maybe it's not in our policy yet,
It
can you keep that
was,
from
but
bias?
it's kind of faded out, and now we had 2,200 pages of policy, and they said, I've read and fully understand this policy. There's no way you can understand a 17-page policy or a 8-page use of force in a split second. They needed it. I tried to simplify it. I was not allowed to. When I was, we had good results. When they put me in charge of auto theft, we cut it in half. So I was over our planning and research for a while after I left the academy. And then they sent me to a towing lot because I didn't make chief, and that's when I went back to grad school and got my doctorate. So,
Well, as an engineer, I'm also an engineer, and I tend to think very much in
yeah.
charts, and can you see how that could be an asset for the board?
Oh, yeah, I was thinking of myself more as an asset for everybody else and a sounding board and say, what could they done? What could they have done? You know, what should they have done? Did they have time to do that? What's the reaction time? You know, look at the age and weight and height and were they in shape, were they not, you know?
We really appreciate your comments. We're down to a minute
I
and
know.
30 seconds. Oh, hold on, you're fine. We're down to approximately a minute and 30 seconds now. If you could just complete this statement. Above all, I would just like for the community to know
That we're striving to give a fair view to the community and not just weight it toward law enforcement.
Thank you so much.
You have any problems
Thank you.
with the brotherhood, being that you're a former police officer? You know, there's,
Do I have, yeah, I have problems with some of my cohorts sometimes. They watch too much of certain news programs and get swayed.
Please know that we appreciate you for taking time to come and speak.
Very
That's
nice.
okay.
Nice.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Nice to meet you as well.
Nice to meet y'all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I like it.
I do too.
Thank you.
Just sit in the chair and
I've got him in a big way.
Hi.
How
I'm
are you?
Berkeley.
Full disclosure, we live around the block from each other.
Good afternoon.
Hello, ma'am.
Thank you for your willingness to serve. I'd like to introduce myself. We're all council members, and my name is Council Lady Brenda Haywood. After
you,
we
ma'am.
introduce ourselves, then we have you introduce yourself. We have 3 questions we'd like for you to entertain, then we'll open it up, okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Sherry Weiner.
Hi, Sherry.
Berkeley Island.
Berkeley.
Dave Rosenberg.
Hi, Dave.
Sharon Hurt.
Sharon, good to meet you, Miss Hurt.
Okay.
So, you want me to go ahead with these? Well, I'm a native Nashvilleian. Lived in the same area where I was born many years ago. And I'm interested in serving on the Oversight Board because I think this is an important board, and I think you need to have fair and unbiased people that can make rational judgment. And this is why, and I'm retired, and I have plenty of time, and I worked for Metro government many years ago, and so that's why this is why I serve. And also, I was in the sheriff's office too,
Okay.
and I think I'm qualified because I was executive secretary at the Employee Benefit Board for 12 years, and I know all about making up agendas, doing research, and making presentations, and following up. So I think that qualifies me.
Okay, thank you.
My background, familiarity with civil rights. Well, so I was born and raised in the segregated South, and it always bothered me, and that it was like that. And very young in high school, I became active, and I, worked in that area. And in the 60s and 70s, I was very involved with the legislature with Mike Murphy, and we did a lot of work with the Black and Women's Caucus, and so I had a great working relationship with them, and I feel very strongly about civil rights and equity, especially equity, because I'm well aware of the unfairness, and I just felt, it was just so humiliating, honestly, and that's that part. So my background, experience, and our familiarity with criminal justice and policing practices. First, I was an officer in the National Guard for 27 years, and so I had a military background. And as an officer, I gave training all the time, and in civil rights issues. Sadly, I was involved during the Martin Luther King riots. I really want to ride here, but I was involved, and we spent hours and hours giving lessons to the troops who were, it was a very difficult situation. Spent a couple of nights in the park, freezing to death, and but also with the military training with firearms and so forth, and also as a training officer. But in the Sheriff's Department, I was a warrant officer, and served there for 12 years. And as a warrant officer, of course, I was on the street and dealing with folks of all different things. Made a few arrests and served warrants is what I did. And so I'm very familiar with them. We had training at the police academy, and also we had training in the sheriff's office about sexual harassment policies, and we did that in the Army too, in the Guard. So I'm familiar with the policies and the approach and so forth. So, like I say, I've been retired for 16 years, and I'm over 65 or whatever that said in that thing. I'm 79, honestly. So,
That's good.
I'm willing to do this, and I think I would be a real contribution. I think I'd be unbiased and fair.
Okay, questions?
I don't have any.
What, as we constitute this board for the first time, what do you think we should be looking for in board members?
I think you should be looking for a diverse group, people that are pretty unbiased as they can be. I think that you should be looking for somebody that can hit the road running, you know, with experience such as I have. And because it's going to be a lot of organizing and stuff in the beginning. But you should pick people that are qualified, that are willing to serve, that are sincere and unbiased.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm glad to hear you say that you like someone who's unbiased, but considering that you worked in the sheriff's office and that you've been trained with the police academy, I know that those are brotherhood-like kinds of things. Would you have any concerns on being able to hold your brothers accountable when necessary?
Absolutely not. We did that all the time. I mean, we expected professionalism and accountability among everybody, and no, our training precluded that. Mm-hmm. No, ma'am, I'm not part of the blue wave or whatever they call it. Mm-hmm. I gotta get sad. You know, I was involved when Jerry Newsom was murdered, serving a warrant, and that was really an impact on me because that wasn't a confrontational situation, but it was really sad. And no, I can be fair and unbiased.
Yeah, I believe you because you almost scared me then.
I did.
I wasn't trying to insinuate you were, but you know.
Other than the obvious
I'm convinced.
definition, how would you define the word transparency?
Transparency, I would define it as many faceted transparency in every way in terms of reporting to the board, to the public, to the officials, to anybody involved. Be very transparent, very honest and upfront with your decisions and your attitude.
I think one of the hopes for the board is that through the process of providing objective oversight, they can help restore trust that seems to be missing in the communities. Do you have, I guess, thoughts on how the board can serve in that role?
Certainly we can. The first way we can serve is being transparent, being very open about what we would do, and meeting interested groups if they wanted it, you know, if they required that, and be willing to meet with them anytime, not just at, you know, we meet at 7 o'clock next week, but anytime. And like I say, I'm retired, and I have plenty of time, still have a little bit of energy left. So
Okay.
that's how I would approach it.
Okay, well, thank you. Well, first of all, we'd like to say thank you, and we're down to 1 minute and 30 seconds. And if you would just take that opportunity to complete this statement, I would just like for the Nashville community to know, as it relates to the COB, what would you like for us to know?
I would like for you to know that I'm willing to serve, that I'm qualified, well qualified. I would be unbiased and fair to everybody. I have the time and the energy to devote to it, and so that's what I would offer. That's what I would give, and my sincerity and honesty and fairness.
Okay, with a lot of zeal, we'd like to say thank you for your time and your attention to our questions, and
Thank you.
we appreciate you.
Thank you for
Okay?
coming.
I have to say,
Thank you.
I'm sorry Kathleen's not here.
Thank you so much. I'm sorry she's not here too.
Yeah,
She had another obligation.
she's so much me.
We'll tell her you asked about it.
Sit in chair at the very end.
Take the head chair. Thank you, folks, for having me over.
Thanks for coming.
Yeah.
My name is Griffin. What? Not yet. We haven't started.
Okay.
I mean, your name is still Rick Love, but. 15 seconds.
And we still appreciate you for being here.
This must be me, Mr. Nominee.
That's you.
That's me.
Is that good? You may have a seat. Okay. First of all, we'd like to thank you for your willingness to serve. I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Council Lady Brenda Haywood. We have some other council members here. After they tell you who they are, then we'll come back to you. You can tell us who you are, and we have 3 questions that we would like for you to entertain. Is that okay?
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
I'm Sherry Weiner.
Berkeley Allen.
Dave Rosenberg.
Sharon Hurt.
Good evening, folks.
Good evening.
And my name is Rick Luff, L-U-F-F, and I live in Hermitage. I live off Old Live in Dirt Road, just barely a Davidson County resident, because the next subdivision over is Wilson County. So I'm on the far east side.
Okay.
And I have question number 1. Briefly explain my interest. I immigrated to Nashville from South Florida in 2006, and a very common theme, and I'm going to reiterate it again, is I was not born in Nashville, but I got here as fast as I could. And I really loved the place. I didn't know anybody when I moved here, and dragged my wife kicking and screaming up the interstate to get here. I found the community to be very welcoming. I've enjoyed every moment I've been here, and I don't think I'd want to live anywhere else. And I've lived in the city of Chicago, the city of Tampa, suburbs outside Indianapolis, and of all of them, I like this the best. I have been watching the news over the last few years. There are some items that I don't want to see repeated here. Now, my contacts so far with the Nashville PD have been great. They've been polite, courteous, professional. I have absolutely no complaints about them, okay? But I don't want to see certain things happen here that have happened in other places. For example, the lady that in Texas that was arrested on a traffic stop and died in jail. I don't want to see that happen. That was a failure at the squad level, at the street level. The children arrested in Smyrna, the 13 of them that were arrested for not reporting a fight, okay? That was a failure on the way up through the chain of command, and I don't want to see that happen. The third item that I mentioned was the Candy Crush problem that they had in, I think in Smyrna or Murfreesboro also, where the whole criminal justice system from the top to the bottom did not do its job and harassed and arrested and caused harm to people that they shouldn't have. And remember that in any job you have, the number 1 thing is first do no harm. And they violated that first code right there. That's the reason I kind of got interested in this when I saw it come up. Okay, I said, if not me, then who would you get? If not now, when should I do it? Okay, so that's the reason why I had the interest in this. I like the community, I like what I've experienced so far, and I don't want it to go down that road that other communities have done. 2 of them right next door to us. So let's have a reason to say I don't want to do it. Secondly, from a historical perspective, this committee could exist as a safety valve to avoid the situation we had downtown in the 60s with the sit-in at the Walgreens. What would happen to us if a group of citizens organized legally marched across the Vietnam Veterans Bridge and started parking themselves on Broadway, you know, at 10 o'clock on a Saturday night? We would be on everybody's news program the next day. We can avoid that. We can solve our problems up front and avoid it. I don't believe the purpose of this committee is to solve problems after they happen. I think we should take a more proactive approach and solve it before they happen. Now, John Rockefeller of Standard Oil was asked by his biographer once, what is the secret to your success? And he says, I think of everything that can go wrong with the deal I'm in, and I work like hell to avoid it. And I said, and I think that's what we should do here, think of everything that could go wrong in the beginning and maybe stop it before it even gets to the newspaper. You know, I think that's probably the purpose of this board. The board specifically mentions an audit function. Excuse me, I got a cold. An audit function, which is probably the best way to keep things on board. Now, what we have going on here now, there's already a process in place. And I think I said it in my application. The biggest challenge to this committee is going to be sliding into that process and building the trust on both sides. You know, we have to do that first. It can't be going, we are not, as I said in my application, we are not vigilantes, and we are not a thumb in the eye of law enforcement. We're not either one of those. So in order to be effective, we have to have trust from both sides. Now, I have 10 years municipal experience, plus a year and a half here at the Metro Fleet Garage. There are three things I believe in. I believe in transparency. Okay. I believe in the rule of law and due process. And I also believe in being responsive. Those three things are what's going to build trust in the community. And that's how you do that. And whatever processes the committee adopts, board committee adopts, they're going to have to reflect those three basic parameters, those three basic criteria, or else somebody's not going to trust us, somebody's going to be looking over their shoulder, somebody's going to say, why didn't you should have, the whole thing. And I don't want it to evolve into a situation we're seeing at the school board now, where it's gotten down to personalities and divisiveness and accusations. I don't think we want to do that. So that's kind of like where I want to do that. That's where I would push to do that. Background and familiarity with civil rights and equity issues, I'm not an attorney. Okay, you have to be an attorney to have a good background in that. If you went by just that criteria, the only people who would be on your board would be independent civil attorneys, independent criminal attorneys, and independent civil rights attorneys. And I don't think that the amendment, that the charter amendment, wanted it to go that direction. I think it wanted citizens' involvement. Now, also on the charter amendment, it stated that you'd be willing to attend and complete all the courses. Well, I can do that. If you look at my resume, I've listed all the courses I've taken since my graduate school work at every place I've worked to try to keep current and to find out exactly how things are done. So I'm not a civil rights lawyer, and I'm not a criminal lawyer. So I admit that right up front.
Okay. You might want to talk about number 3.
And the last one, criminal justice foreseeing policies. Well, I raised 2 boys, a single dad, and you bump into that enough. And the most curious thing they did, 2 minutes, is my youngest one and his brother organized a gang of kids, and they broke into a schoolhouse. They got into the skylight in the center of the school, rappelled down, and were eating chips and soda in the cafeteria when the police walked in. I said, I had to deal with that. What are you guys doing? I have to fight to get you to go to school. And in the summertime, you go ahead and do the pull a stunt like this. And I said, where were your heads? You know?
That's a wonderful story. And since we're down to 1 minute and 30 seconds, I would just like for you to answer or to respond to this statement. I would just like for the Nashville community to know, as relates to this board, what would you like to leave us with?
I would like you to come to every board meeting and listen to everything I say, and you're welcome to look at every note I make and listen to every word I say. I have no problem with that.
We thank you so much for your
Thank you.
time and your willingness to serve. We thank you.
Well, I think you are a very interesting person. You had you came with some slogans: conflict prevention instead of conflict resolution, build trust and have balance. I'm like, okay then.
Well, thank
You're
you.
very interesting.
I don't know of any other way to do it.
I'm sorry, we need to move on.
And again, thank you folks for having me.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you. We appreciate you.
15 seconds.
All right. 9 seconds, you guys over 9 seconds.
First of all, we would just like to thank you for being here tonight, and we'd like to thank you for your willingness to serve.
Thank you.
I'd like you to know that my name is Council Lady Brenda Haywood, and you will meet the other council members, after which you'll introduce yourself, and then we have 3 specific questions we would like you to entertain, and if we have enough time, we will just open it up, okay?
Fine with me.
Okay, okay.
Good afternoon.
I'm Council Lady Sherry Winger.
Oh, okay.
Berkeley Allen?
Dave Rosenberg.
Sharon Hurt.
Sharon Hurt.
Yes.
Long time. Been a long time. All right, my name is James F. Donnelly, better known as Boots. A whole lot of people ask me about how do you get your nickname, but we'll pass that up for the time being. I was born and raised here in Nashville, Tennessee, on 19th and Cedar Street, which is now Charlotte, okay? I was born in the back of a beer joint. I also lived at one time in Edge Hill housing projects. So I know a little bit about what needs to be done or how it's going to be done or whatever it may be. I was a football coach for 32 years. Started as a head football, as an assistant at Father Ryan, took over the head coaching job at Father Ryan. Went to Vanderbilt, left Vanderbilt, went to Austin P, stayed at Austin P for 2 years. Was fortunate enough to win championships at Ryan and also at Austin P. And then I left there after 2 years and went to Middle Tennessee. I played ball at Middle Tennessee. I got a master's degree and a BS degree from Middle Tennessee. I went back to Middle and coached football there for 20 years. Then I became the athletic director for 5. At the present time, I'm the CEO of a program called Backfield in Motion. We deal with about 208 at-risk kids from the first grade up to a senior in high school. We do this 5 days a week. We do it 12 months out of the year. It is a program that we work with them in reading and math. I employ full-scale certified teachers. I don't have volunteers. I have teachers that I pay. They teach from the first grade through a senior in high school. So it's an expensive program, but it's a very, very good program. We transport the kids from school. We also take them home. We feed them, whatever we need to do with them to get them to improve, to move out of the housing project, so to speak. Basically, it's a program for one-parent families. It's a program that these kids are so far behind in reading and math that we try to escalate the learning process as quickly as we can. I have a wife, I have 3 daughters, 9 grandkids, and a female dog. So it's really enjoyable for me to come here to be able to talk. This says what? Briefly explain your interest in serving on the Community Oversight Board. It's my belief that the welfare of anybody, regardless of your background, regardless of where you live, in the criminal justice system, I think everyone has a right for a fair situation to not to have any prejudice shown against them. I think that his treatment has to be honest, it has to be fair, and it has to be done that way. You know, as far as why I'm interested in serving, I think my background dictates I have a tremendous amount of common sense from where I was raised and from the number of people that I coached. As I stated before, I was a football coach. I was also an athletic director. I had to deal with all types of people. I had to bring an awful lot of people together for one one cause. We had to do whatever it was going to take to pull everybody together to basically have one voice, and that's what we did. Describe my background, I just basically did that. For 32 years of coaching minorities, that's a lot of them, and I'm very, very proud that an awful lot of them have done exceptionally well. When you look at my background, I went to the first integrated grammar school, and that's Cathedral on 21st and West End, which is now closed. I also went to the first integrated high school. That was Father Ryan High School. Everybody talks about being integrated. We were integrated in 54, 55. We also played in the first all-white, black high school basketball game, Pearl and Father Ryan High School, and that's all out on the record. So I understand all of that. You know, the civil rights background. My mentor many, many years ago was a guy by the name of John Siegenthaler. John was my coach. After John, I also had a coach that was with John named Fate Thomas. So I get the great spectrum on both sides, okay? And I don't know how many of you do not know John, but John Siegenthaler was the publisher of the Tennessean. He was the editor of the USA Today. He was in John F. Kennedy's cabinet, and I was extremely, I called him Coach. I was extremely close to him, have been all the way up to the day that he died. So looking at civil rights and all, he was one of the big leaders in the civil rights movement. So I know a little bit about putting both together, whatever it may be. Describe your background, experience, and familiarity with the criminal justice. I have a degree in counseling. I have a master's degree in counseling. When I was at Father Ryan High School, I did some counseling at the workhouse. I don't even know if the workhouse is still in existence. But the 1129 guys would come in and I would counsel them because I had a degree in that. Trying to get them to fill out the proper paperwork so when they did get out, they could get a job. They did some of this, or whatever it may be. So all of that is what we did, and what I do, and what I still do with these kids from the first grade now all the way up to the 12th grade. So, you know, I know we've got a tremendous divide between the police department and the community, and that is not good. Something has to be done. How you do it, well, you know, to me, it's all about trust. It's all about communication. If you don't trust each other, you're not going to get anything done. If you can't communicate with each other, you're not going to get anything done.
Coach, we have about a minute and 30 seconds left. I was just wondering if we could get one question in here from the committee. Does anyone have a burning question from the coach? Does anyone? No? Okay.
Y'all must be tired, huh?
We're not.
Covered it all.
Well, you covered a lot of ground. Coach, if it's one thing you'd like to leave with the Nashville community as it relates to the COB, what would you like to leave with them?
Well, truthfully, I like to leave honesty. Okay. I don't have an agenda. I don't have any place that I'm going, okay? I don't have any place I want to go. I know this about Nashville, Tennessee. I was born and raised where everybody talks about wrong side of the tracks. You can do whatever you want to do if you got the right mentors. You got to have people that can lead you. And I think that's so important between the public and the police department, communication. And each one of them is going to have to sit down and know what's right and know what's wrong, and let's get this thing straight. Because we got what I refer to as nitpicking on both sides. You know, we got jealousy, we got all that stuff, but sooner or later you got to change it. send a letter.
Coach, I'd like to take this opportunity from the council members that are present here to thank you for your time and your effort and your energy and your willingness to serve.
Did I pass?
Very well.
Thank y'all.
We thank you so much.
Thank you.
I love his shoes.
Do you?
Got the experience, didn't he?
Let's start.
Huh? Yeah, we're ready. We're starting? Okay. Hello.
Hi.
Thank you for your time and your willingness to serve. I'd like to introduce myself, and everyone else will do the same. We're all council members, after which you introduce yourself, and then we have 3 specific questions we would like for you to entertain. You have 10 minutes. If we have any time left, we'll just kind of open it up. Is that okay?
Okay.
Okay, again, I'm Council Lady Brenda Haywood.
Berkeley Allen.
Okay,
Sharon Hurt.
all right, we're ready.
Hi, well, I'm Andres Martinez. I'm currently Director of Communications and Policy at Conexión Américas. That's kind of one of my reasons for my interest in serving. So most of my career has been in the nonprofit world. So I've worked at 2 different nonprofit organizations, Conexión Américas and the Texas Civil Rights Project back in Austin. At Conexión Américas, we deal with a lot of equity issues surrounding Latino immigrant families here. If you're not familiar with the organization, we serve as a resource for immigrant families who are achieving their version of the American dream. Every year, we help over 8,000 families, start or expand their business, learn English, or succeed in school. So we deal with a lot of equity issues there. One of the big ones is success in school, for example. We help parents who may not have had their education here navigate the school system in the United States. So oftentimes immigrant parents come over here not understanding how the school system works, not even speaking the language, maybe not even having gone to much school themselves. So we really empower parents to take charge of their child's education and become the best teacher or reclaim their role as the best teacher in their child's lives. Prior to that, so I served as assistant legal manager at the Texas Civil Rights Project. There, I got to work on a variety of civil rights cases. So the Texas Civil Rights Project is an organization dedicated to promoting the civil rights of low-income Texans. So I got to work on cases that dealt with every single type of civil rights violation. I had the opportunity to work on the prisoners' rights portion of that nonprofit. So I got to work with clients who were incarcerated people who were experiencing civil rights violations, whether it was in prisons, in jails, in immigration detention centers, in federal prisons, or juvenile detention centers. But I also served on this organization's case intake team, so I fielded calls in English and Spanish of people who claimed to have civil rights violations.
Where is this?
Sorry?
Where was this?
This was at the Texas Civil Rights Project.
Okay.
So as part of the intake team, I, got to handle cases dealing with police misconduct, whether those were claims of excessive force, of discrimination, or of any unfair or unjust police department policy. It was incumbent upon me to then investigate that, which is a lot of what the Community Oversight Board will do, whether that was requesting a police department's written policy on a certain issue, whether it was requesting certain things via open records requests, so videos if there were video evidence, police reports, also in interviewing witnesses. If the person who was complaining had witnesses to whatever issue there was, it was incumbent upon me to interview those witnesses, to then take all that evidence and present it to the attorneys to see if there was some viable civil rights claim that we could make to impact policy, civil rights policy in Texas, hopefully improve police policies, just to make things safer for everyone, police and citizens. So on top of that, my interest in serving too is I really would like to see this board succeed, and in order for it to do so, it needs to reflect the diversity of Nashville. Latinos make up 10% of Nashville's population, and it's only growing. So there definitely needs to be someone on there that can speak the language of people of Nashville, these people of Nashville. I can't pretend to speak for all Latinos. You know, we all don't speak with one voice. I'm Mexican American, and I can't speak for my Colombian American friends or Ecuadorian American friends, but I really feel I have an ear to the ground for the issues facing the Latino community here because of the work that I do at Conexión Américas. Currently, we are having some issues with people being scared of the police, immigrants especially, because of House Bill 2315, which passed the state legislature last year and just became law this year. That kind of enables police to inquire about someone's immigration status, and it's really making immigrants fearful of interacting with law enforcement in any matter. So I feel that Nashville's police department has the opportunity here to step up and really regain the confidence that it's not their fault that they're losing the confidence of the people, it's the state's fault, but they really have the opportunity to step up here.
Have you entertained each one sufficiently to your knowledge?
Sure. Going back to the diversity that this board must reflect, I'm gay, and I serve on the board of 2 organizations that serve the LGBT community, Nashville Pride and the Oasis Center. Again, I can't claim to speak for all people that identify as LGBT people, but I certainly am exposed to all the issues surrounding.
All right. Question?
Yes. I'm Sherry Weiner. I was out when you walked in, so I apologize. Can you define for me bias and oversight?
Sure. So bias is coming in to, say, an issue with some kind of preconceived notion about the situation. So I may be biased against someone because they are who they are already. So if someone's complaining about police bias against Mexicans, well, the police officer obviously has some sort of preconceived notion in his head, or her head, that Mexicans act a certain way, or I should deal with Mexicans a certain way as opposed to dealing with white people a certain way, or African Americans a certain way. And your second?
Oversight.
Oversight. It is accountability to me, or ensuring accountability. I think that this oversight board, at least, will ensure that type of accountability. So whether it's investigating claims of police misconduct or already examining existing policies to make sure that the policies are best for ensuring the safety of all Nashvillians, but also protecting law enforcement officers who, their lives are put in danger every day.
Okay, we're down to 1 minute and 30 seconds, and we really appreciate you. And if you would end by completing this statement, okay? I would just like for the Nashville community to know, as it relates to this board, what would you just like to leave the community with?
I would just like to leave the Nashville community
with just whatever you would like for them to know
about
as
this
to
board.
surmise how you feel about possibly being a part of it.
I think that it's a great opportunity for Nashville's police and the Nashville community to work together to ensure the safety of all its people and work together.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. Appreciate your time and your energy and your effort and your willingness to serve.
Thank you.
I like the fact that he's young.
I do. I
And
like
can
the
bring
youth.
that perspective.
Oh, I can feel it. It's you and you as a brother. Yeah. That's big.
30 seconds.
Okay.
Hello.
Hello there.
Yes.
Jan?
First of all, we'd like to thank you for taking your time to come and your willingness to serve. I'd like for you to know, my name is Council Lady Brenda Haywood. We have other council members here that you will meet. And after that, we'd like you to introduce yourself. We have 3 specific questions we'd like for you to entertain. And if we have enough time within our 10 minutes, we'll just kind of open it up and talk beyond that, okay?
Great.
All right.
I'm Sherry Weiner.
Berkeley Allen.
And, I'm sorry?
Berkeley Allen.
Berkeley, okay.
Sharon Hurt.
Okay, very nice to meet you.
Okay.
I'm Gina Ross, and I'd like to thank you, because I know you have been listening to a lot of people. So thank you. Okay, so let me start off. My interest. I'm interested in serving on the committee, on the board, the COB, because I'd like to provide a vehicle for the community to address their concerns about policing. I think that's a big interest of mine. Also, I think that to be able to contribute to the positive restructuring of the policing and the community relations would be awesome. And most of all, to give a voice to the community, give a voice to the voiceless and just to the community in general, because it's a very pressing issue, obviously, if it was voted to have a COB. So that's my interest. Now, why do I think it's important, or why, the reasons? I would say that right now, Nashville's growing, and as it grows, we have potential to have even more things happening that might cause concern in the communities, and as it grows, it would be great to have a board that addresses this in an effective manner and that helps us navigate through an already established criminal justice system, way of doing things in the time of tech, because this is what's happening. We have transparency now. We have technology that is making it very unlike it used to be. So as that develops even more, I think it's critical to have an oversight committee that makes sure that we don't make the mistakes that other cities have made with uprisings, when we're having protests and things go on, and then after that, we try to make changes, and maybe some of the changes affect the community in ways that are negative. The policing, for instance, in Baltimore, homicide rates have gone up now. They're up, but then solving them has gone down. So they're not solving the homicides. So you have a community of people who are feeling like, the rates are up. It's a simple crime that was, well, not simple, but it was simple to solve, and it's not being solved because the police detectives are overworked because they've assigned too many homicides to them. Well, this is a reaction to changing things, and so we need to be smart as we change things and not have negative reactions. And so that's one thing. And another is just simply addressing abuse of power. Abuse of power is real, and it's something that I think we could, a community oversight board could at least decrease the occurrence of that. As far as my background, I'll tell you a little bit about myself. I graduated at DePaul University, which is in Indiana. Originally from Indiana. I've been living here back and forth for a while, with a minor in sociology and a major in communication. So that minor in sociology was my first, I'd say, academic exposure to civil rights. Now, I had personal exposure watching hearing stories from my grandmother, who was born in 1915 and lived to be 98, very blessed to have her live that long. And she was an advocate, all of her life, integrating things, and this is before the Civil Rights Movement. And then my mother and my father doing things like that. So I had exposure to civil rights issues and a dedication within my spirit since the time I was a kid. So then academically I was exposed to it, and I got even more passionate about that, and I was involved in the university movements, just too many to talk about. So, and then after that, I worked for the legislature in Indiana. I worked for the Indiana State Legislature for a state representative who was very involved in community advocacy, and that would also relate to criminal justice as well, policing even. We had some policing issues that I dealt with. That motivated me to go to law school, finish law school, and during law school, I got exposure to criminal law, criminal justice, and when I clerked for a law firm, I was able to work in their criminal law area. That also exposed me to some policing, not much, but a little bit of the issues, but definitely it was a firm that was known for being able to argue death penalty cases at the Supreme Court. Now, I never had the opportunity to do that, but still, it was very involved in that. So I knew then that that wasn't exactly what I wanted to focus on, but it was definitely an experience. And the other exposure I would say to policing that would, I think, be very relevant is that my father worked in corrections all of his career. He was a teacher at the Indiana Boys School. We lived on that campus, so we were with people who were young people who were incarcerated, basically, and lived on that campus. And then after that, he worked at the Indiana Youth Center. I mention that to say, and as a director of guidance, so guidance counselor, then director of guidance, I say that to say my experience with my father taught me that there is a way that you become when you deal with people who have committed crimes or might not tell the truth a lot. So you get a little tainted with that sometimes. And I always work not to get tainted with that. I think it's important to judge people as objectively as you can and not put things on them based on their background. And that is what I would like to bring to the COB as well, is that objectivity and, show by example. Now, and the only other thing I would add about myself before I'd like for you to just ask me questions, is I've, served on quite a few boards. I've served on the Board of Visitors for the university. I've served on nonprofit boards. I've served on committees, HOAs, a lot. So only 2 minutes. I have to stop. Ask me questions. So I just want you to know that I do have experience with that detail of getting things done on a board. So
All right.
please ask me something.
Does anybody have a burning question?
I have a quick question.
Okay.
Yeah.
Could you define bias and oversight insofar as it relates to the COB?
Well, it depends. Bias, could you be more specific? Bias in relation to?
In general.
In general? I guess bias would be personal bias, I would say. If someone has a personal bias, that it would not be productive in the COB, because personal bias is going to make you have a prejudice. But we all have things that, emotions and experiences that we deal with, and the most important thing is for us to be able to manage those and be conscious of them. And I'm conscious of mine.
That's good. Okay. One last thing.
Yes.
If there's one thing that you could leave with the community, I'd like for you to complete this statement. I would just like the community to know.
I would just like the community to know that I'm excited for this board, whoever's on it, to fulfill the expectation that is very high and very deserving for the community. And I would do my best to do that, to fulfill that expectation.
I can't tell you how much we appreciate your time and
Yes.
your willingness to serve, and thank you, and have a wonderful rest of the evening.
I appreciate you guys. Thank you very much. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, excuse me, Howard.
Because that's the same thing.
What they doing?
To someone else,
That is
that
the
is their reality. Exactly.
Start now.
Start now? First of all, we'd like to thank you for being here and thank you for your willingness to serve. I'd like to introduce myself. We're all council members. They'll tell you who they are, after which you'll tell us who you are. And then we have 3 specific questions that we would like for you to entertain. If we have time left in our 10 minutes, we'll just kind of open it up. Is that okay with you?
That's fine.
Okay, again, I'm Brenda Haywood.
Sherry Weiner.
Berkeley Allen.
Sharon Hurt.
Okay?
Start the question. Briefly explain your interest in on the Community Oversight Board and the reasons you wish to serve. My interest in this board is to hopefully help provide a better connection between the community and the police. The thing I find is that the key to the better relationship is basically open communication, and each side has to understand both sides. Like I was telling a friend of mine, people have to understand that a lot of times when you work in law enforcement, that's a job. You're not sure if you're gonna come home at the end of the day. So you gotta understand what they go through. And then on the community side, sometimes you gotta understand what's the vibe in the community, how are things going. And a lot of that is just having a relationship. The better relationship you have, the better interaction you have amongst the two. My background in civil rights and equality issues, while I went to graduate school at the University of Southern Miss, and during that time I participated in a couple of human rights conferences and presented papers on civil rights issues, things to that nature. Also, while at the University of Southern Miss, I was one of the students, leaders that helped get together a Black Studies program, which is the only Black Studies program in the state of Mississippi. So we helped get that together. My background with criminal justice and policing practices has to do with first thing is I work in metro schools. Second thing is I also have worked at a boys' youth home. And during that time, you have those boys that's come in, get into trouble with the law, and you kind of know the procedure dealing with the DCS side of things. Mostly with youth kids in trouble. So that's pretty much my experience in dealing with those type of policies.
Okay. Thank you. Let's open it up for questions.
So, tell us what your goal for the board is and how you'll define success. Everybody's come in and said they want this board to succeed. What does success for this COB look like to you?
Success for me would be hopefully both sides have an open dialogue and have a better relationship with others. Because too many times it seems like there's always a rift between police and the community they serve. So hopefully, my goal would be, hopefully I could be one of the ones on the board to help to provide that better relationship so that everyone, because the better relationship we have, the better we'll be as a community.
So, being a young Black man yourself and knowing...
Thank you. My birthday, just to say, my birthday was yesterday, so...
Oh, happy birthday.
Thank you.
Knowing that there has been something, racial profiling or driving while Black or some of those things, can you be objective when it comes to situations like this?
Yes.
And how so? Why do you think so?
Because I'm gonna be honest with you, personally, I've had experience in being in justice for matters. And while I was Southern Miss, I a graduate student, I studied philosophy. If you know anything about philosophy, or different things about religion. And I grew up in the Baptist church and everything. But a lot of times, it's like, you learn how to separate your personal from the academic. And when it comes to the Community Oversight Board, the thing is, every case is different. You can't blanket every situation as the same thing. And I know the way I think personally, I do know how to be objective in different situations.
Are you from Mississippi?
Actually, I'm originally from Birmingham, Alabama. Oh. So that tells I do know a little bit something about civil rights.
All the states.
You have something? I don't have anything. You have anything?
Tell me about what you think the makeup of the board in general should look like. I mean, yeah, I think you bring a perspective of someone who studied civil rights in college. If we're looking at 11 people on this board, what should those other 10 people bring to the board to add to what you're going to bring?
First, I think you'll probably need someone business, who has business within the community. Second, you have to bring another person who has worked with a good number of people who reside in the community. Maybe like you knew like a youth counselor, so that, because a lot of times the opinions we form as a child, we kind of bring them to adulthood. And from my experience from working with kids, is that their relationship with the police is contentious. And the thing is, when they get older, then I believe it'll make that relationship continue to be a very contentious thing. So you also need people. I'll be honest, you do need a diverse board because you bring different perspectives. Because one person may experience one thing with the police while another hasn't. It's up to both sides to be open to discuss the different experiences they had to help people understand. I remember, trying to make a quick story, I remember I had a friend in grad school. He was writing a paper to get into law school, and one of the paper discussion was he was coming out the closet as being gay. And in the paper, he discussed coming out to his father and to his family. And that was the first time I ever heard that perspective. I didn't just really think about it, but it made me think, okay, wow, I never knew this side of the story. And it opened my eyes, and I'm like, oh, okay, people got to experience different things to get different perspectives.
A couple of things. First of all, becoming a candidate for this board, was that your idea initially, or did others encourage you to become a candidate?
Actually, a couple people encouraged me.
You get that?
They felt like that I was a good person and that my heart was in the right place and I was open-minded. So with that being said, I said, okay, I will go for it.
Okay. Did you readily receive that?
Yes.
Okay. Now, the last thing, if you would complete this statement, I would just like for the Nashville community to know, as it relates to this board, what would you just like to leave with the community?
I would like to know that I hope that this community board provides the end game of at least create a better relationship between the police and the community. And I'm a huge Alabama fan, and I believe it's going to be a process. And you got to follow the process, but if we stick to the process, I think it can achieve that.
We certainly appreciate your willingness to serve and sit here and answer our questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. You know, this process, I think, is good because it's allowing people to feel included, you know, that they're a part of. So this, the inclusion is really good.
Ken.
First of all, we'd like to thank you for your willingness to serve and for being here tonight. I'd like to introduce myself, and I'd like for you to meet the other council members. My name is Brenda Haywood, and after which we have 3 specific questions that we would like for you to entertain. We have 10 minutes. If we have any time left over, we'll just kind of open it up, okay?
All right.
Thank you.
Sherry Weiner.
Berkeley Allen.
Sharon Hurt.
Okay.
All right, so do I just dive right on in?
You can just dive right in.
All right, so I guess the first question is my interest in the Community Oversight Board. I think the first and foremost would be to better my community. Second is I'm here for the cause. I believe that bringing my knowledge and my skills and my energy to the table can benefit the organization or the Community Oversight Board. As far as my background in criminal justice and policing practices, I don't have any. Willing to learn, take any kind of courses, training courses to get familiar with those policies and procedures. As far as equity and civil rights is concerned, I work in an organization that deals with the public. And so dealing with, you know, equity issues and civil rights issues, it's my job as a leader to make sure that everyone is educated, especially my employees, to make sure all patrons are treated equally. So.
Okay. I have a question. You talked about to better the community, and you want to bring your knowledge and your skills and your energy, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Could you tell us a little bit about the knowledge that you would like to bring?
The knowledge that I would like to bring is just more of a, I guess it would be an equality basis and being fair, holding everyone accountable. Just holding everyone accountable in that area.
Okay. Your skills? Is that
leadership skills.
Okay.
Absolutely. Leadership skills, communication skills, skills in building with others.
Okay.
Let's just pretend scenario. We're the COB, and you're a member of the COB board. What is your approach to dealing with people of 2 completely different thought processes?
I think the approach would be to I guess, would try to come to a common medium for both sides. I'm not always right, and neither is the other side. So I think coming to a common medium, understanding and putting that together would be the way to deal with that.
So, I think we talk about the goals of the Community Oversight Board kind of twofold. One is to provide oversight for issues of alleged misconduct, and the other is policy review. Or can you comment on how, from your perspective of dealing with the public, you would engage with the board on a process? I mean, there'll be experts bringing y'all information. How do y'all work through the process of going through a case of alleged misconduct and determining, you know, whether there was misconduct or not? How do you see that process playing out?
I think that we would first have to establish, you know, the procedures and policies to make sure that the guidelines were followed. That's the way that you approach that. I don't think that my opinion in that matter would or my opinion in that situation would matter. Like I said, it would be strictly following procedure and protocol in that area.
And this particular board, I mean, y'all are the first wave of it,
Yeah.
so y'all will be, you know, part of the board that sets up with those procedures and policies would be, do you have kind of specific thoughts on how that,
I just think that if the community has an understanding of what needs to be done, then it's okay. It will be able to execute it. But they have to have an understanding of what needs to be done. I think that's the problem. There's a lack of understanding between the community and Metro Police.
So what do you think needs to be done?
Like I said, I don't really have a for sure idea of what needs to be done, but like I said, communication from the officers to the community, that's a start. I think getting out in the community, letting everybody know why they're there and what they're there to do is a start.
So people have been in here and they have been going on and talking and answering these questions, and you have been very brief and pointed and this and this and this. So if you get in some kind of discussion with your fellow colleagues on this, and they going on and on and on, and y'all trying to come to some kind of conclusion, and you here for 4, 5, 6 hours, how are you going to be able to manage that? I'm not saying that you are impatient, but you kind of remind me of my daughter, because she's just a one-answer kind of person. And how would you be able to relate to that and balance that, because they are going on, and you're like, hey, let's get this done.
Well, I think that is the balance. Do you have those people that are going to go on and on about it, and then you have myself to say, hey, this is what I feel, this is my opinion, and this is where I'm at, and so we can put those together. But that has to be that balance. Everybody can't be going on and on and on.
But are you going to be able to deal with that?
Absolutely, absolutely, absolutely.
How are you going to be able to do that when wait?
Like I said, it's being able to listen and to build on what another person is saying. That's it.
What one thing caused you to want to do this? If you had to pick one incident, one thought, one piece of knowledge, what was it that made you go, I want to serve on that?
It was just being a voice for my community, being a voice for those people who can't speak, being a voice for those people who, I guess, who's not in a position to do those things. So I just wanted to be the voice for those people.
I was listening. I was waiting to hear you say this, and then you said it when you were talking, because I kind of I gathered that from you, even though you have you on top of it, but listening is what you would be doing for the others, and I was looking for you to say that.
Yes, ma'am.
I got you pegged.
Okay, you got me pegged. Yes, ma'am. Pegged.
If you could leave one thing with the community that you would just like the community to know as it relates to the COB, what would you just like to leave with the community from your perspective?
From my perspective, if I could leave anything with the community, just let them know that we're there for them. We're not, we're not here to persecute them, or we're not here to put them down. We're not here to rip them apart or tear them apart. We're just trying to establish a medium between Metro Police and holding them accountable. That's it.
Okay. That's great.
Yes, ma'am.
Anybody, anything else? No? Okay, first of all, we just like to thank you for taking your time and to come and answer our questions and your willingness to serve, and we really appreciate you.
I appreciate you guys having me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a wonderful night.
Thank you.
You too.
Love that hair.
Thank you.
Yeah, me too.
When's your birthday?
February 27th. Pisces.
But check this out.
Come in, please.
Richard Luff had on his expiration on his ID was February 27th. Tina Fox said she was going to retire on February 27th. And now her birthday, February 27th.
And you remember all that.
Of course she does. Sharon.
Still about 50 seconds.
Wow.
Relax, take a break.
How many seconds?
45 now.
Well,
Lean back, lounge.
it's a lifetime.
hand.
First of all, we would just like to thank you for being here, for your willingness to serve and to come and interview with us. My name is Council Lady Brenda Haywood. I'd like for you to meet the other council members, after which we have 3 specific questions we'd like for you to entertain after you introduce yourself. And that's it. Is that okay?
That's fine.
Okay.
Sherry Weiner.
Hello.
Berkeley Allen.
Hello.
Sharon Hurt.
Hello.
Okay.
I am Kenneth D. Kenny Hardy. I am a 2-time candidate for Davidson County Sheriff. I am a retired military combat veteran. I am also a retired police officer with over 30 years of experience. I chose to volunteer to be on the Community Oversight Board from day one. I was involved with a lot of the community, different organizations that were involved because I had concern about law enforcement. Having been a police officer out on the street, I actually saved several lives when I had an opportunity to use deadly force. And I was able to talk a young man to put a weapon down, and I didn't have to fire 1 round throughout my whole career. So I'm very experienced with use of force, deadly force. I won a Medal of Valor for that. Also won a Lifesaver Award for a young lady that I didn't have to cause to see any damage. She was committing suicide. I was able to save her life as a police officer, and I didn't get hurt. So I have firsthand experience about use of force, policies and procedures. I've been a federal law enforcement officer, state law enforcement officer, a local law enforcement officer, and a college campus police officer. So I've had an opportunity to deal with rights for citizens at all levels. And through my service in the military, I've served in Korea, Germany, Greece, Panama, and I've had an opportunity to deal with people from diverse countries. And again, their rights are just as important as Americans. So having the rules of engagement, understanding those, and being in foreign countries, it gave me a lot of respect for human beings. I'll answer question number 1. That's my interest in being on a Community Oversight Board. I think that as a citizen, we all have a civic duty to do something. I'm a grandfather. I have 4 grandsons, and I have 1 son. And I have been stopped by the police. I carry a weapon still. I'm a retired police officer. I have credentials. But until I identify myself, police officers treat me like everybody else. And I expect to be treated like everybody else. You shouldn't have to identify yourself as anybody special to get any special treatment. You're a citizen, and we need to value everybody. My background, again, retired police officer. I've dealt with children as they were, and sometimes in rough neighborhoods. I've had an opportunity to work with these kids while being a PAL coach. I've done community policing. I've been in programs where you can actually help people, and I have changed neighborhoods around just by getting kids to turn in guns and checking on our seniors to make sure they're okay. I think that if you're being stopped and your civil rights are violated, those rules that the police have to follow, I've had a chance to get a disciplinary write-up because I let a guy go. There was something was more important, and there was a lady whose life was in jeopardy, and I had to let a prisoner go. I could catch him later, but the life at the time was more important, and I did catch that guy later, and we did save the life of the citizen. That was more important. Again, my background and experience with the criminal justice system, I hold degrees in sociology, criminology. I have another degree in criminal justice. I have a degree in law enforcement. I have completed graduate education courses, over 42 graduate courses in education. And I've completed over 30 graduate hours in forensic psychology. So I've been doing criminal justice since I'm a...
2, I think.
Well, I'm not supposed to tell you my age. I'm 54 years young in March. But I started college and taking courses in the military, and I said when I leave, I want to give back. I'm not a native Nashvilleian. I came here in 2006. When I retired from the military, I started teaching school. I've been a school teacher as well. And in my class, I had an opportunity to change kids around. I've been a DCS caseworker. I've had a chance to help save kids at state level. And I had a lot of the cases where there was a lot of factual evidence, sexual assaults were going on, and I had to collect a lot of that evidence and be able to hand the district attorney and the police departments a case that was wrapped up to have these perpetrators placed in the right place. So I've been said by my grandkids, they called me, and every time there's a shooting with the cop, they says, "Grandpa, you're a bad cop." I says, "Wait a minute. Grandpa treats everybody fairly, and I will do the same on the community board if I'm selected. You have to be fair. You have to look at the facts. Today we have video evidence. We have things that can get miscrewed. I'm familiar with giving commands. The citizen's not always going to hear what you're saying in the heat of a moment. If you reach for your phone, in the heat of a moment, if you're upset, we have been trained to de-escalate things. I actually talked that guy down. He was an active shooter. Loaded all his weapons, was ready to take everybody out. And through the training that I had, I was able to de-escalate this gentleman. He put his weapon down, not one round fired, and we got him some mental health help. So I've been a domestic violence detective, and I was able to help some men and women. Predominantly the aggressors are men, and I was able to help a lot of women get in safe places, and I also had to arrest a lot of perpetrators because they violated the law. But you have to go by the law, and we're talking about reasonable suspicion, probable cause. Those things are just not black and white. It takes time to understand those things. So with this Community Oversight Board, I've watched all the information, but as a person that has been out there making arrests, you have to be open and you have to follow the law. And if the policy needs to be changed, we need to sit down and talk. I've been called some of the worst things as a police officer. I've worked in the low social economical areas, and I've worked in pretty high class areas. But again, if I had to write you a ticket, nobody likes getting a ticket. I never said, "Have a nice day." At the end of that contact, I would say, "Drive carefully." And that would allow people to move on. So I hope you consider me. I'm not in for any kind of fame or fortune. I'm just a regular old guy that want to do his civic duty. And I think that I'd make a good candidate.
Sounds like we need to get you back out there on the street. You know, on what you're doing.
I think that working with people, my investigative skills are probably the best attribute that I have in getting people to work together. Even if we can't agree, if we disagree, we can still have an opportunity to sit down and say, "Okay, I disagree," but civilly we can still say, you know, we need to make a decision. Can everybody?
We have 2 minutes left, and I would love, I feel like someone has a question for this young man. Could you all please pose a question?
I'd love to know, I mean,
Okay.
let's say, the rest of the board is civilians with no military or police background. Can you talk through how you would help them understand the perspective that you see as y'all evaluate a case that, as you say, is not going to be necessarily black and whiteness?
Well, and again, when you have a lay person with no police, and again, I don't have any ties to the Metro Police Department. I've never worked for Metro or the Sheriff Department. Did want to be the sheriff or the chief, though. I think that when you have a lay person, you have to go slow, and you have to share your experience with them, and you have to be a pincushion. So some of that frustration is going to come back to me, and I'm going to have to explain it to them. Go down to the police academy.
Yeah.
And see how they do. Don't just watch TV. Go to the police academy. Sit in some criminal justice courses.
We have maybe 30 seconds left.
Okay.
And I would like for you to take that 15 to 30 seconds and complete this statement. I would just like for the Nashville community to know, if you'll complete that.
That I'm for all of Nashville, regardless of race, creed, color, or your ethnicity, background. I'm very diverse, and I will support and defend every Nashvilleian. and I still will do that. I'll run for office next time as well. I'm for all of Nashville
Okay.
and
All right.
every community. Thank you.
We thank you so much for taking your time to come and be with us. We really, really appreciate it.
All right. Y'all didn't see my wife back there waving her head when I said all right, thank you. All right. Oh, I gotta come in. Okay. How are you?
Sit right there, please.
Hello.
How are you?
How are you?
First of all, we'll start, and we just thank you for your willingness to serve, and thank you for coming out tonight and
Thank you.
to be interviewed. My name is Council Lady Brenda Haywood. We have other council members here, and they'll let you know who they are. After which, we have 3 specific questions after you introduce yourself. If you will entertain those, we have 10 minutes. If we have any time left, we will just kind of open it up for dialogue. Is that okay?
That's excellent.
Okay, thank you.
Sherry Winger.
Berkeley Allen.
My pleasure.
Sharon Hurt.
My pleasure.
Okay, and if you just introduce yourself and
My name is Howard Jones, native Nashville. Been here all my life, and been an educator and a pastor here for 30 years, and an educator for over 20 years, and also I have been a probation officer at juvenile court. Getting right to your questions, in terms of briefly explaining my interest in serving on the Community Oversight Board and the reasons why. Well, it's a civic responsibility. Born and raised, reared here in Nashville, and it is indeed the It City. And we want to continue to make it that and pull it together. I think this is a real good way to begin to pull the community together. So I'm about us being together instead of divided and fighting. In terms of the reasons particularly, we can help foster better relationships between the police department, surely, and the overall community. We could also bring, surely being involved not just in rhetoric and talk, we could be involved with actually being proactive and making a difference in the community and surely making sure that it's equitable. Our civil rights and constitutional rights will be indeed shared. We'll be transparent. Definitely I'm willing to serve on this board, and surely I've been, as I said, I was born and raised here in Nashville, Tennessee. Describe my background and familiarity with civil rights. Well, my background is I'm an educator. At this present time, I am a principal at Stratford High School, and I have been an educator, as I stated, for 20 years. Prior to being an educator, I was definitely a curriculum coach, still in education. But I was a probation officer at juvenile court for 10 years. And an interesting piece of being a probation officer, I worked in what they call the intake division, where the police would bring babies in that committed an alleged delinquent offense, and we would have the opportunity to find out, well, what TCA code would this particular offense connect with. So that's a great experience I think I bring to the table in terms of my background. My familiarity with civil rights, wow, I remember my days with Ms. Magruder and those when I was president of the NAACP, the Youth and College Division of local chapters. I was a state conference president and also regional chairman for the Southeast region of this area in terms of civil rights and what we fought for at that particular time. In terms of equity issues, when I think about equity issues, I think about this is a city of laws, a state of laws, a country of laws, and it should be indeed administered in an equitable way. It should be fair. There should not be any imbalances in terms of justice, and that's what we ought to most certainly hold to love. That keeps our civilization where it ought to be. Without those laws being indeed implemented and dealt with on an equitable way, we are not going to have a society of peace, but of chaos. So without the absence of government is indeed anarchy. And so I'm saying we need to absolutely have this piece together. So in terms of describing my background and experience, again, in criminal justice, I am a graduate of the Police Academy. So I'm familiar with policing and policing as far as that's concerned. I think we have a great system in place in terms of the equipment and the money we put in, and perhaps we could do a better job in just pulling together. I think what we could do with the police department is making sure that all of us are more culturally competent, that we are all understanding who we are and that we live here together, that we all are citizens. Police are citizens, and the people that they indeed police are citizens and have rights.
So, again, probation officer at juvenile court. I did also serve as community corrections probation officer for about a year after I left there, and then I went into education. And then began to teach civics and our children's civics responsibility and Constitution. I taught history, I taught psychology, sociology, and those particular things to help our persons make it. So hope I answered your question, so I want you to give me some more questions if I did not clarify all of these.
Okay.
So there's conflict prevention as opposed to conflict resolution. Can you speak on that possibility of being able to implement something?
Conflict prevention, I would say, if I build a relationship with you, I'm going to absolutely be able to handle conflict. And being a principal and all the conflicts that come in the community, because the community surely, the school is a microcosm of the community. So the first thing I have to do is learn who I'm going to educate. I can't educate them until I build a relationship with them. So that is a pound of prevention. So if, for instance, when I think about when I was a kid, we had policing in the community where I knew the police, they knew my family, and so that helped curtail a lot of conflict instead of getting into the conflict and then trying to resolve the conflict. So I think building a proper relationship is going to be preventive in terms of many of the pieces. And I've got to know who you are. I got to know who you are, and I've got to believe in you and believe in surely what I do, and what I do is serving you, and not vice versa. I think that would give us a better clarity of prevention.
Insofar as, think of the terms bias and oversight, share with me how you would define that as it relates to the work this board needs to do.
All right. In terms of bias, I can't bring in my bias in the sense of I don't like the police. Kill the police. All the police are bad. All police are not bad, and they're citizens in this community. So, in the sense of community, one great word in community is unity. All right. So I've got to understand and not have a bias just because you may be from Europe. I can't sit and say, well, I have a bias against you because I'm from Ethiopia, because we're all human. And it's one thing that's very clear, that you want to go home safe and you have a family. But what we need to understand is that we all belong to this city together. And we understand that that'll clear up the biases, and the laws are to be indeed dealt with everyone fairly. That's equity. That's fairness. And that's what this board should be about.
Good. Thank you.
She also mentioned oversight. How do you?
In terms of oversight, that's something overseeing just community, overseeing, and when you see this oversight, we're going to look at it. It's got to be about community and not about bias. It's not about building a fight.
Okay.
It's about actually, as honorable lady was stating, it's about living together, being together. All right, a pound of prevention is what we need to be about. Okay, that's what it's about. Yes, sir.
So everyone who's come in has said they want to be on this board because they want to see it succeed. How would you define success for this board, and how would you guys work yourselves out of a job? If you said we've done our job so well, we don't need a community oversight board because?
Data. It's got to be results oriented. You just can't say, well, we're on this board and it worked. We need to be able to see some empirical data that says this board has made a difference in this city.
And what would that difference look like?
That difference would look like the unity in our community. That difference would be the curtailing of this divide, this fight between the police department and those they serve.
We have about a minute left,
Yes.
and if you could complete this statement, I would just like for the community to know, as it relates to this, I would like for the community to know.
I would like for the community to know that we need this oversight committee. I would like the community to know that we need to begin to have a conversation with each other. I would like this community to know and understand that we're going to be a better city as a result of us coming together, and that the police should not be fearful, and those that are in the community should most certainly celebrate, because they have elected to make this happen, and we're going to do it well. And I want to commend surely the council for doing a great job in organizing and doing a great job in putting it together.
I can't tell you how much we appreciate your willingness to serve and your willingness to come down and be interviewed. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate you all.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Right here.
Hot seat right there.
Just for you.
How's everybody?
Use the pen.
5, 4, 3.
Thank you.
First of all, we appreciate your willingness to serve, and we appreciate you being with us tonight. My name is Council Lady Brenda Haywood. We have some other council members. They will tell you who they are. Then you will introduce yourself and entertain these 3 questions, and if we have time left over, we'll just have continued dialogue. Is that okay?
Sounds good.
Okay.
Sherry Weiner.
Pleased to meet you.
Berkeley Allen.
Pleased to meet you.
Sharon Hurt.
5 times. I'm Daniel Battle Griffin Jr. A little bit about me. I'm originally from Chicago. I'm a Vietnam veteran. I have lived in the South. I've lived in the North. I've lived East. I've lived on both coasts. I've been in 46 states and halfway around the world. Policing communication is something that I have been doing for a long time. When I was discharged from the Air Force in 1967, I spent a year and a half working as a social worker, what we used to call a street worker. I was one of the original people who worked with the Vice Lords and Disciples in Chicago. And my job was trying to keep them out of trouble, trying to focus them on something that would be positive things of that nature, okay? And I did that prior to going to IBM in 1968. My experience with IBM was not that great and wonderful because I was the first African-American that they had ever hired in Northwest Chicago. And so when I left there, I decided to go to college. I went to Howard, graduated. I graduated with a half-a-year law. I had 3 daughters who needed to eat, and so I selected to feed them rather than finish, law school, which was a good decision because they're all doing well. But make a long story short, when I left IBM, what I did was I promised myself that if I got in a position to help and do something different, do something as far as civil rights was concerned, and justice and equity, I would, and I have. And I have been doing that in every position I had. At Hewlett-Packard, I had several different positions. I was the campus manager at Howard University for the recruiter. I did that, and I did that for 10 years. I worked with the University of California's MESA program, which was designed to help disadvantaged people, underprivileged, stuff of that sort, convince them to seek math and science-based studies. I did that in Silicon Valley because you know what we need in Silicon Valley, okay? And I did that for 11 years. I actually sat on the board for the last 2 years that I was there. And so my life has been, working with kids and stuff of that sort. As a matter of fact, I met my wife in 1986 in the MESA program, and we've been doing it for 32 years together. So I've been doing this for a long period of time. I did a diversity study in 1999, 2000 with Sacramento City and County Sacramento in the purchasing department. After leaving Hewlett-Packard, I started my own market research company, and that's why I did that. I have been numerous years, just working with kids. Went to Mississippi 2004. My wife and I got married, went to 2004. We spent 10 years working with NAACP. I was not that much aware of what the NAACP is, of that sort, so I had a whole lot I had to learn, even though I spent 30-some years with the Urban League. And it's because I worked in corporations. In Mississippi, we were able to do an awful lot of things. We got a new court order to reintegrate the schools. We got court orders to change the judicial system because they were convicting people of things, but like breathalyzer was not working, and no charges sent to the DA, and all kind of crazy stuff. Okay, I don't want to go into detail, but anyway, a lot of things was going on. Okay, probably the biggest thing that we did was that we had a state prison which had put minorities, juveniles in there, and they were molesting them. And so I had got together with ACLU and Southern Poverty, and I convinced them to get together because nobody has any money in Mississippi, and to take on the project, which they did. So they ended up getting 2 consent decrees against the Walnut Grove Correctional Facility. The second one they got upset, and these were in CCA and management and training. And the state got tired after that, and so when we left 2 years ago, they closed the facility. took a lot of heat from a lot of people because I said I took 200 jobs away. But I can't take jobs away when you have people molesting and hurting children. I ended up buying into that, okay. I've been involved with civil rights for a long period of time. In my family, something has happened. My mother was the first African-American war committee woman in the city of Chicago back in the 50s. I got it at the dinner table. And so I'm still doing it at the dinner table, okay. I've been doing legal redress for over 12 years with the NAACP. What I discovered was that that's something I'm good at, that's something I really like doing, and that's something I just don't want to get in and get out of, okay? I'm going to continue to do that. Just take them as they come. Well, like I say, you know, I've been with Urban League for 30 years. NAACP, I did legal redress for 12 years. I've done with them, okay? You know, I've taught sexual harassment. I've taught sexual discrimination at Hewlett-Packard. You know, so I've done that. I've done a host of things as far as, you know, in being involved in civil rights. As a matter of fact, I don't think I've ever been out of it since 1976. 1976. My experience at you know, IBM was so very difficult that I was just determined I was going to do something different, and I did. And I'm happy I did because it helped. Okay. Interest in COB. I would like to be on that group of people who finds a solution to all this police shooting. I would like to be in that group that finds a solution as to how do we get policemen to feel like everybody in the community is important and not feel as though they're going to be threatened by a particular person, whether that's their color, their religion, whatever. Okay, I don't think that's necessary. I don't think that's kept. I think an awful lot of that is done by word of mouth. I don't think that's in the training. I don't think that's in the police manual. But I'd like to take a look and see. But I really believe that the problems that we're having today with community policing, okay, have to do with the fact that the community can't talk to the police and the police can't talk to. The Saturday after Daniel Hambrick was shot, I went out to where the person was shot, and there were a lot of young people out there, and they were going after police and stuff of that sort. And I stayed there with them for a while, and I asked them, well, when are y'all going to go home? You know, this was 10:30. I said, when y'all going home? They said, they're not going home as long as the police stay there. I said, really? I said, okay. You're telling me that if the police leave, you're going to leave? I said, yeah. We won't have nobody to holler at, not nobody to do anything. So it was interesting. So I went down 17th Street and I talked to the sergeant in charge, and I asked, I said, let's do an experiment. Could you move your vehicles back and turn off the emergency lights? Because they say if you go away, they're going to go away. I'm just curious, will they go away? And they did. They did. We had a town hall over at Zion Baptist Church, and Smallwood came over to talk, stuff of that sort. And of course, it was very adversarial. Nobody wanted to hear anything he had to say. He was not saying anything that was sounding good. Okay. But what I made sure was that we did not holler him down. We did not talk him down. We did not approach him, stuff of that sort. The issue is that there's got to be some civility here. Civility means that you have to treat everybody with respect and dignity from day one. If you can do those two things, treat people with civility and communication, you can solve almost any problem.
At this time, thank you so much. Does anyone have a burning question that they would like to ask? We are down to a little less than 2 minutes.
I'm good.
You good? Berkeley?
Real quick, so again, you have a lot of expertise and you're gonna have a board that may not have as much expertise. How do you effectively share that with the rest of the board?
What I'm very good at is training. What I'm very good at is sharing, okay? What I've been able to do 2 years I've been here in Nashville is to take on a lot of people. I've been able to get Neighbor Ludi to take some of the cases. I've been able to deal with the EEOC and Tennessee Human Rights Commission. So it's a matter of talking to people, finding out where you have common ground, and getting people to go and work in those areas that are important to them.
If you were standing in front of a group of policemen and a group of community members, what final thing would you just like to say to them if you had 15 seconds to say something?
God created all of us. He created all of us. All of us have some kind of a talent. All of us have abilities. He did not create us to, attack one another. What I would like to see, what I would say to them is that, hey, we need to put some time together, being together, learning and understanding one another. Okay? If you don't know me, you don't understand me, of course, you're not going to like me.
I thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for your time and your effort and your willingness to